Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Lance, I am back from my Main Street tour. I'm not yet ready to fly, but I'll tell a little bit about that later. But it was an interesting drive. Drove to Kansas City from LA and back.
Well, Bob, you were in some of my favorite towns, Kansas City, Tulsa. Did you go to Wichita?
Went to Wichita.
Yeah, some great Midwestern places, and sure hope you enjoyed your trip through the Midwest.
Yeah, it was a little hot. I picked the wrong week. Hey, we're going to focus on business acquisition loans today. A couple topics that we have also. Let's go right to this. Number one, what percentage of your portfolio are BizAc loans? See, Delaney, do we have Delaney on? Is she stealth or is she, Delaney, are you on? No, she's not.
She
I am on, but I currently have tornado sirens going on.
Oh, I want to hear that. Then get that. All right, Delaney.
Are you able to hear that?
Yes, you are excused. Go find a basement.
Bob, the tornado sirens are going off here as well, but we have crystal clear skies and 68 degrees. They do a weekly test on Wednesday at noon.
That's a good excuse for us California guys. Tornado siren equals bad, so Delaney, you're excused. Lance, that's about in line with our results. What SBA, the reason I was going to bring Delaney in, I think we were at 24% BizAc loans. Lance, that sound right to you?
That does sound right, Bob, but I expect the category to continue to grow. In fact, my good friend and my boss, Chris Hearn, was talking about business acquisition loans in one of his podcasts the other day. And, we have a ton of business acquisition loan opportunities coming forward with all the baby boomers that are retiring, selling. So a lot of opportunities here.
What percentage of the time do you finance a BizAc loan with SBA? I know some of you are just in SBA, but just curious
Bob,
if it. Go ahead, Lance.
I hope it's a big number, Bob.
Well, it's going to be over 75%. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm not surprised by that, Bob, because the SBA loan program is made for business acquisitions.
Yeah, it screens business acquisition. Why? Because there's usually insufficient collateral to support the loan, but there's cash flow, and that is the definition of an SBA loan. If I was a manager of a department and I'm looking at my 20.
Well, the other thing that comes in.
Go ahead, Lance. Well,
I'm sorry. The other thing, Bob, on the business acquisition loan, and you mentioned lack of collateral, but the lower equity injection requirement is a huge plus on SBA for business.
Since you brought that up, bring it. What is the equity injection requirement?
The requirement is a minimum of 10%. Now, again, Bob, you know,
as low as 5 under certain circumstances, which are
with some seller financing on standby, Bob, you can go 5.
Would you recommend it?
A lot of it depends on the business that's being bought and its performance and cash flow. It's like any other commercial loan. It's got a cash flow. It's got a debt cover, and the equity injection has an impact on that.
Well, this is going to help answer too. When I say insider transactions, I'm referring to management, generational. How many transactions are you? What percentage of the transactions does the buyer have some sort of interest in the company, either generational, relative, or management buyout?
And Bob, this has an impact on your business valuations.
Well, tell us about that.
Well, for instance, Bob, let's say, this actually happened many years ago, but I did not have to get a loan. I got a loan from my dad, the Bank of Jack at Radio Shack. But when I bought my business from him, let's say we were financing that with a SBA business acquisition loan, your business valuations are required when the blue sky or value exceeds 250. Or you can do an internal valuation, but if it's a closely related transaction, a father selling to a son or a mother selling to a son or daughter, that puts it where you have to get a third-party business valuation.
Yeah, brother to brother, absolutely. And SBA is going to scrutinize those transactions very, very carefully. Doesn't mean don't do them. It's just let's make sure we do them right. We get the valuation. And they have to answer the question, is this loan beneficial to the company? In other words, is it a windfall for the seller and it leaves the company bankrupt, which is by definition with an 18-month default, or it's beneficial to the company because the new buyer is going to come in, going to retain employment, add to employment, et cetera, et cetera. So that is something that you will definitely be second guessed on. Finally, how has COVID impacted the underwriting, the acquisition, the servicing of your biz acquisition loans?
I have to believe
Go ahead,
more
Lance.
activity. I have to believe more activity, Bob.
Well, I also threw in those other two more. Very good, Lance. It is making it more difficult.
Yeah.
I like the too many
Well,
borrowers. Go ahead, Lance.
the reasoning for, I'm sorry, Bob, there's a lag, so I hate,
Yeah, no
I
problem.
don't
I know, we're having,
continue.
yeah, I know. You're blaming on the tornado. Go ahead.
But yeah, it's the tornado that's blowing through in the crystal blue skies today, Bob. But what happened, I read an article the other day talking about how much COVID has accelerated retirement in baby boomers, which is resulting in more and more small businesses being on the market to be sold, which should result in more business acquisition loan opportunities for you as an SBA participant lender. So I think COVID took a lot of people that were on the fence about retirement and went ahead and pushed them to
Joseph,
that retirement point.
Joseph, where are these stats from? Who's the source of these stats?
This would be the SBA Office of Advocacy.
Okay. Thank you, Joseph. I don't hear tornado warnings, Delaney. Thank you very much. Okay, Office of Advocacy. And we have 2/3 of current owners plan on selling their business. Most of these owners have started their business. 22% are purchased, 7% are gifted, 4% are inherited. Interesting. There was an analysis of second generation ownership on when they take it over from the parents. Lance, do you have any feel for that? How does the second generation act? This one person I talked to, a liquidation specialist, said second generation tends to run these things into the ground.
I think as a lender, you have to look very closely
Thank you.
At a business acquisition where there's a second generation. And Bob, this is the funny thing is, I think it was my mom. I go see my mom every day.
Good for you.
Well, she needs a little help, trash carried out, things like that. But my mom we were talking about this, and she said, Lance, when you guys were growing up, everybody my age was saying you guys were going to ruin the world and you guys were lazy. And now that I've gotten older, I look at the current generation. Right. I'm like, what are they thinking? They're banking with their phone. I mean, I'm not real sure what's going on. It's not just a new generation, Bob. Our friend at the SBA Roadshow interviewed me at Mount, Bob, and he said, what are two things that you learned during COVID that really impacted you? And one of the things that I learned, Bob, was that looking at the resume is so important, and it is important when there's a generational change in business acquisition. Did the younger generation work in the business? An example, when I grew up, My dad was in the furniture business. My brother and I worked 48-hour weeks when Dad probably should have been turned into the Department of Labor when we were 12, 13 years old. My brother worked his entire life from age 12 to age 25, and then my dad sold the business to him. Well, my brother had 13 years experience working hard. That makes sense, but in a case where you have a parent who has a business and the child went off to school at Stanford and then traveled Europe and then, again, look at the resume, look at the work experience, look at what they bring to the table and really closely consider that.
Well, the stats, I don't have the stats in front of me, but the stats are second generation fail, first generation fail X, second generation fails, and then it gets down to the third generation. Less than 4% of businesses survive to that point. So it is important to take a look at that, and that's a nice chart from the Office of Advocacy. Very good. And it'd be interesting to see how they perform, and those that are purchased do close higher than those that are founded.
But Bob, I do want to state a generational change is not necessarily horrible if you have the right person, the new generation has the right level of experience. Well, I use an example, Bob. You've got two sons that are working with you that are intricately involved in the business, and whenever you decide to retire, you have well-qualified people.
Right, and that's no. I think your comment about looking at the resume is very important. Absolutely. Let's see, Delaney, is this on you? What's going on with the shuttered venue data?
So it looks like they're getting through it pretty quick. I believe there's less than 5% left of applications that are currently being reviewed or haven't started review yet. I do know that there's still about $6 billion left. So if you have any venues that need some money, I would actually apply. Given I think it is only supplemental grants now, but there's still plenty of money to go around.
There are a lot. We've reported last week, I know, about direct lending. There's hospitality wants their own separate PPP. I've heard PPP 3.0. All that's out there. We're not really reporting on it right now until it becomes a little bit more solidified in the out of Washington. But other than there is a lot of activity, people are talking, and the consensus, I would sum it up as, if there's a need that needs to be filled, Congress is going to work very hard to fulfill that. Would you agree with that, Lance?
Oh, absolutely, Bob. You mentioned SBA doing direct lending. Bob, it takes you and me back to our early days when SBA did direct lending. And you had to carry an application to the district office. And one thing Delaney and I were talking about yesterday, we were talking about SBA personnel and how thin it is currently. Can you imagine if SBA does direct lending and has to go out and find a bunch of loan officers?
Well, yeah, all the bankers are on the call saying, please don't do that, please. We have this great infrastructure. We're doing that. Yeah. On my travels, I picked this up. I thought it was interesting. This was at a store. I'm sorry, the reading is slight, but it says, hey, we have limited supply of stuff, and sure enough, half the cabinet was empty. And it's interesting, Lance, if you look on there, it says, please be kind. I've seen that theme now. This was a Main Street store. It was a C store. I got my gas and went in to get my caffeine, and there it is. This is another store, which is interesting. They painted this on it. Said, we are all in this together. Go to the next slide, Joseph. Get the big one there. It says, stay positive and be kind. And I've never seen those before. Have you seen anything like that, Lance?
I do see a little bit of it throughout Arkansas, Bob, and you were in the Midwest, and these kinds of things pop up around here. But the supply chain issue, we've talked about it. It's
real,
and it's real. There are, I was out fishing with my brother, and he continues to tell me about the difficulties in getting product into his business. And he had a significant gain in 2020, and he's got a gain going so far, but his biggest concern is, am I going to be able to get enough merchandise to keep that goal?
No, absolutely. No, it's, and on the ground, just observing, the supply chain was there, and it was interesting. About half the people, I know this is Midwest, were still wearing masks. I was one of them. And it was interesting to take all of that in. Hey, Lance, you're doing a webinar today on, what are we doing? You're doing PDK?
We're going to talk about the 10-tab purchase demand kit.
Well, this is so important right now, Lance. I mean, go ahead.
I think knowing how to get paid on your guarantee is critically important. And again, nobody had significant levels of past dues in 2020 because we had CARES Act payments and PPP money.
Mm-hmm.
But there are businesses out there that were kept alive by that. Now the question is, will they continue to stay that way? I think we're going to have a lot of purchase demand activity. At the end of the webinar, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the purchase demand process on PPP loans, which everybody will have to work on.
And next week, Lance and I are going to tag team, and we're going to do the business acquisition and tear that apart. Lance, your great feedback on your loan closer training. We are starting up again for fall in a couple weeks, so be sure and take it. Joseph, let's update that. Yeah, we know they're available July 15th, but now we're going to fall. For, I guess today is first day of fall. Is that where we're at?
It is.
Yeah, there you go. Well, very
and
good.
It's, Bob, where it was 95 degrees last week for you, it's 68 degrees here today.
I missed it by a week. Hey, glad to be back. I had a good time away, clear my brain a little bit, and thank you all for your support. And numbers keep strong. I know that you're working hard to close your loans by the end of the fiscal year, but our job is to keep you up to date what's going on, and we thank you for your time. And thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a good afternoon.